Hello and welcome to this presentation. This is a literature review on post-traumatic stress disorder and women in sales occupations. It is presented at the University of Arizona Global Campus Research Symposium in April of 2021. My name is Delia de Jesus and I am your presenter. I am an alumna of Ashford University. I hold a diploma in Ph.D. in organizational development and leadership, as well as a Master of Arts in psychology from the University of the Rockies. My current career aspiration is to examine the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder symptoms on the revenue trajectory of women in sales. I am a member of the Society of Industrial Organizational Psychologists, as well as the Association of Training and Development. And I am also a public speaker. I have two goals for this presentation. The first is to present a brief overview of current literature concerning the studies of PTSD with the intent to identify gaps in the literature with regard to women in sales. It is my hope that this research, this review will ignite future research with the intent to advance the field knowledge of organizational development with regard to women in sales-oriented occupations, and hopefully influence the development of sales and training programs and human resource initiatives, and ultimately perhaps impact the revenue outcome of women in sales. The problem as I see it is that women are suffering from symptoms of PTSD, and not much attention is being given to the fact that those symptoms might be manifesting themselves in ways that interfere with the sales trajectory of women in sales-oriented occupations. Please note that this literature review is very specific to women in sales-oriented professions. I conducted a study of 19 different research in 4 areas: psychiatry, clinical psychology, cognitive psychology, and neuroscience. Within the years of 2006 up to and inclusive of 2020. Here's what I found. Current literature suggests that there are 2 types of traumas. There are those traumas that occur as a result of accidents and natural disasters. And there are the second, more life-changing traumas that are violent traumas. Now, with the first set of traumas, they don't last beyond 3 months. That's what research is telling us. But the second form of trauma, the violent traumas that might come from family psychosocial histories, the witnessing of violence, rape, relationship violence, those type of traumas are longer lasting, and they manifest themselves in later adult life experiences. Now, there are 3 characteristics inherent in PTSD symptomology. The first is re-experiencing the traumas. The second is engaging in avoidance behavior. And the third is being hypervigilant. Some of these characteristics, some of their symptoms are experienced later, in many years after the trauma has occurred. The researchers in these 4 disciplines, psychology, psychiatry, clinical psychology, cognitive psychology, and neuroscience, they agree that the trauma that occurs in the developmental years doesn't manifest itself until later years. And for that reason, I believe that it's really important that we begin to examine the effects of post-traumatic stress disorder that women are experiencing, and when they go into sales, how those experiences are manifesting themselves in their sales trajectory. Here's what I found as a result of reviewing the 19 studies that I took a look at. There are memory deficits that are impacting women in later years. There are core beliefs about the world and about, women as they see themselves regarding their traumas and the world around them. There's also neurobiological abnormalities that are manifesting themselves, and there are environmental triggers that are leading to avoidance behavior and hypervigilance in the present. What does that mean? That means that a trauma that occurred 10 years ago won't manifest itself, or may not manifest itself until 10 years later. And resiliency is much more difficult for many women. And that's why I think we need to look at this further. And also, the brain is affected in ways that lead to later life difficulties. There are also emotional effects that lead to later life interpersonal difficulties, which again, all of these findings might not happen in the immediate, but the fact that they are extended to later years, I think we need to examine that further. Now, I found many gaps in literature, and I'm only listing 4 of those gaps here. None of the literature that I looked at were specific to women in the workplace. None of them address women, in particular in the sales professions, and none of the literature represented qualitative studies of self-identification of potential PTSD symptoms. And also, none of the literature examined the traumatic experiences of women regarding family violence or rape that could affect how women in sales view a potential sales client. McKinsey did a study, and what they found was that women remain underrepresented in the workforce. Now, currently, women in sales professions can be found in technology, insurance, manufacturing, securities, commodities, and financial services, advertising, insurance, real estate, pharmaceutical, travel, and retail. They range from executive level management all the way to retail sales. The New York State Department of Labor, they put out statistical information that gives us a small sample of women in the sales professions. They said that between October 1st, 2019 and September 30 of 2020, the percentage of women, and this is only, again, a very small sample, the percentage of women that are sales manager out of 24,000 sales manager, 37% of them were women. Marketing managers were 30,000, 63% of those 30,000 were women. Financial managers, 85,000, and of those, 47% were women. What this is telling us that yes, women are entering sales professions and they are currently in sales professions. Now, because women remain underrepresented in the workplace, no one has really examined that the differences of wage earnings between men and women could be attributed to PTSD because it is a brain-based phenomenon. And the traumatic experiences which occur in a woman's life in earlier years could manifest a symptomology that is leading to avoidance behaviors in later years. What does that mean? That means, for example, if a woman is raped when she's a teenager, when she becomes a mature adult woman in her 30s, and she's sitting across a client that might look like her perpetrator, that could definitely set off triggers for that woman who then engages in avoidance behavior because she cannot proceed with the sales that she needs to make because that client looks like the perpetrator who raped her in her earlier years. So I think we need to examine that in much more detail. Now, although these disciplines are talking to each other and they're sharing and crossing information and transferring knowledge, it doesn't guarantee that the knowledge that they're sharing and transferring can be transferred over to women in sales. It could be, but there's no guarantee. We need to examine that further. Now, some of the main points about current research is that because empirical research is lacking regarding the effects of PTSD on the revenue trajectory of women in sales, it is possible, and I say it is possible, that women in sales could have had early life traumas that are impacting their sales today. And I asked the question, could it be possible that PTSD is a factor that impairs the earning potential of women in sales? And are women aware of the PTSD symptomology? Can they recognize a trigger in the face of a challenge relative to making a sale? Can a woman who views her client or who is triggered by a client that looks like a perpetrator, can she engage in some form of resilient behavior that will allow her to recognize that the client sitting across from her is not the perpetrator, and can she move forward with making that sale? That is something we need to examine in much greater detail. Here are some suggestions that I am making for future research. I think we need to conduct surveys to find out if women in sales are engaging in avoidance behaviors. We need to conduct case studies to interview women that are relevant to the interpersonal exchanges that are causing them to engage in avoidance behavior. We also need to conduct longitudinal studies with women in sales who self-identify with PTSD symptoms to find out if psychotherapy applications could help them. And also, we need to engage with other researchers in discussions that open up the door to the collection of data to be used that informs the organizational development field, the human resource leadership and sales managers to create programs that enhance the knowledge that women have with regard to PSD symptomology and help them increase their sales. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity and for allowing me to discuss my topic and research and proposing these suggestions to the organizational development community. My name is Dr. Delia de Jesus. If you have any questions, my email is available and you can reach out to me. Thank you.